So, I just got back on this game because I haven't been playing it in a little while, and I was hoping to log in and, record a video for you guys, but no? It's not allowed to? Alright, sounds good. It's alright, we're going to restart the app and pray it works again, but what up, you guys? MxgicIQ here, and today I'm back at you guys with hopefully able to be recorded a Need for Speed Unbound video. And what I'm going to do today is essentially teach you guys how to tune for yourselves, walk you through the processes I go through, not necessarily maybe finding the best build for the car I choose, but just showing you how that process for test and tune would be completed, because sometimes you have to test every motor for every car and it is very pricey, but there's a way to go about it to where if you're a drift racer or a regular grip racer, there's certain ways you can tune the vehicle, and I'm not even going to go into a lobby just to risk the fact that it won't even let me in. So first things first, you have to target what car and what class you want to go for. So for example, if you wanted to get a good B class car or something like that, you want to probably aim for something around A class that you can downgrade into B class. Just because B class cars can also be really good that are already in B class, but typically when you downgrade a car, it usually ends up having more power with, the less overall rating, because you can throw a lower gearbox into it. So you want to target cars that have a lower transmission, like a 4-speed or a 5-speed typically, and then you can really make those decisions. So if I know that this car comes with a 6-speed, but I can put a 5-speed in it, I can purchase it and drop it down a category into B class. And I already know there's the Buick motor in this car, so using that knowledge, I would be able to typically build this, but since I'm already aware of that, I'm not going to. I'm going to choose something like the M3. I think I saw people building this car in that class anyway, so I think it was the convertible version though, but we're just going to go ahead and take a shot here. I know this car has a basic motor that comes in it that has a lot of torque that's going to drop it down into that B class. Typically, you're going to want to do that, but first, before you do any motor swaps, you always want to take a look at the best possible option. I, from knowledge of real life cars, know that this car comes with a 7-speed, and from tuning in this game, I know usually you can at least downgrade to a 5-speed, which is going to take our overall top speed down a whole bunch. So first thing I'm going to do is lower the transmission. Now, in this update, you want a car that comes with a better clutch. This car comes stock with a super clutch, so that's great. I don't really need to do anything. Now, if I'm a grip racer, first thing I'm going to do is put on all my grip stuff, grip tires, road suspension, and tune the handling all the way to 100% grip. But me personally, I'm not. I'm a drift racer, so I'm going to see how much it typically takes for this car to get over to max traction, which is going to be the most acceleration possible. As you can see, there's this traction slider right here that's changing based on the tires I'm using. So first things first, I'm going to throw the road suspension on and see how much more work needs to be done to keep it all the way towards traction of road. And right there, you see it's not moving no matter what tires I put on it unless it's off-road. So I'm going to go ahead and go with probably some grip tires here. You could go with drift tires, but I don't think I'm going to need more than like 40% drift here on this vehicle. From previous knowledge of using this vehicle in A+, it is pretty good with that drift amount. So we're going to go ahead and mess with the handling here. Most of our builds are max downforce, but you'll see later on when I get into the engine parts, if I get 1 PI off or so, I'll start messing with the downforce maybe to get that extra little bit of acceleration from the less drag on the vehicle with lower downforce. So you can mess with that too. So everything here is pretty much set up to be tuned. First things first, I'm going to go ahead and check the motors, okay? So obviously I'm lacking in a money area right now, but if you wanted to tune this car for A+, I would probably just stick with the stock motor, but the 6.6 is going to give you the best bang for your buck in terms of torque for the B class, which is our target class here. We want to downgrade this car 1 class, and that's going to give you your best overall power numbers for the class and things like that, okay? So right here, I'm going to start with the bigger items. So the ECU, I'm going to see how much it takes upgrading to actually throw it out of the class. So it seems like I can max this out. The most points that are going to be added to your overall score are going to be from the fuel system, the points, and obviously the forced induction. Okay, so we're also going to go ahead and throw the forced induction in, and as you see, we're already at the top of B class pretty much, right? If I throw a big turbo in, we're going to get right around to 123 miles per hour, and we're going to have 641 horsepower, 669 foot-pounds of torque. I'm assuming this is probably going to redline tech out to about, maybe I would say 130 miles per hour. But first thing we're going to do is we're going to go and test that. Okay, now I assume if I take that elite ECU out, we're going to be able to throw in, you know, maybe an upgraded fuel system that's maybe pro and an induction to get that same number, but maybe just a little bit lower, and throw a different type of forced induction in there in order to increase our top speed slightly if it doesn't get to about 130. Because as you guys know, in B class, all you really need is 130 miles per hour. Okay, now this isn't the best car in the class, but I bet it's going to be pretty decently competitive considering the horsepower numbers for the class. So we know it has a 4-speed. We're gonna see what this thing can get up to here. Feels pretty good too for like a drift build in B class. This feels pretty good. So if you guys want to copy this build, go ahead. The reason I was okay with putting a big turbo in it is simply because you're gonna be at the higher part of your RPM range most of the time in B class, and especially when you're drifting. Okay, so let's see what mile per hour we get to here. Okay, it really does top out at 120. Redline tech, we can get it up to 126. So that's not terrible, but you're most likely going to get passed up by those faster cars in the class. We want to try and get that to 130 miles per hour. So I'm going to see what adjustments I can do in the garage right now to get that top speed a little bit higher. But honestly, I mean, it's still not a bad car off the rip. Like, we already have a pretty decent handling and quick enough car for B class to be competitive in a BMW. And this is just a random car I chose. You want to put it in the class based on, you know, obviously you want the motor with the most, you know, workability. So if there's a basic motor, you're most likely going to choose that one because you're going to be able to throw it in pretty much every class. I bet I can upgrade this thing all the way to S+ if I wanted to. Okay, and probably get the best power numbers. The high, you know, displacement V8s are always going to be your best bet, as well as the inline 6s. I've found that the inline 6s and the high displacement V8s are always great. The Fox body motor, which I think is the 4.3 liter V8, you're going to see in all of my build videos, obviously, as well, a lot of motors repeat themselves. So don't be afraid to see a motor. Like, for example, I'm pretty sure even the stock motor in this car is pretty good because it's used in the Testarossa. So things like that, like, just make sure you pay attention to the other builds that you have that are successful and look for cars with those same motors. Alrighty guys, now, for example, this is the reason you want to have a lot of money. I've been messing with this car a little bit, making sure to look at my power numbers and make sure I'm happy with them. I think about 500 horsepower in B class is more than acceptable. Now, I'm going to go back and take a look at the transmissions and see how much horsepower I can get for the 6-speed and still get a decent top speed. So now it seems like it's able to up my top speed a decent amount. What I'm going to do here is slowly start upgrading these parts and see what will knock me out of B class. You just have to check every combination when you're tuning, and it takes a while, but it seems like this is going to be our best bet. Our end numbers are 607, okay, 607 horsepower, 640 foot-pounds of torque, got an 11.9 quarter mile, 128 top speed, which, as we already know, RevTech with this motor in this car gives us about an additional 5 to 6 mile per hour, so we're probably going to get somewhere around 134 out of this thing, 132, consistently cruising at probably about 127 when we're not using RevTech, because we do know that this car also tops out a little bit earlier than its listed top speed if you're not using RevTech. 3.90 to 60, okay? So these are pretty decent stats for B class. And now at this point, you're going to see what bottle you can fit in here. So I see that I can fit possibly a Super NOS bottle. I'm going to see what the downforce is looking like, see if I can adjust it just 1 PI. If we can't get it, then what we're going to do is we're going to throw a Pro bottle in this thing. And we're probably going to throw a better clutch in if we can. We're going to try and get that to the 159 as much as possible just because it irks me. So there we go. We got an elite clutch in this thing at 159 with a Pro bottle. And we got a big turbo, a super exhaust, a super induction, and a sport ECU. We got elite off-road suspension, and we got Pro grip tires. So it's not bad. The traction bar is right in the middle. So for any, you know, B-class tracks that have any off-road portions, this thing's going to handle pretty consistently. So hopefully, let's try and get a race in too while we're doing it, so you guys can actually see, you know, how this thing works and if it's really worth it tuning it like this, because you can get pretty consistent builds out of cars just by following these basic steps. 11.8 quarter mile. Not bad stats here on this vehicle. Not a bad car. It works. You know, it's just about figuring out what works best and experience and having a lot of cash flow to tune these cars however necessary. 6th. Not bad. This thing's moving okay. It's got decent handling for the class as well. That's nice around there. burst nos out of that. Not too disappointed here. Okay. Alright. You can't make things like that up, right? Like, I just hopped on this game, and we already got some shenanigans going on today, but it's going to be alright. We're going to... Thank God. But we're going to see how this car we have finally tuned performs. Now, we're going to start under the track. Okay. Oh, my Lord. Oh, my Lord. I cannot get a break. I can't catch a break. I just can't. This is... Come on, you guys. I mean, like, come on. I'm trying my best here to play your game, support it. Like, oh, wow. What do you want to kind of initiate the slide as you're coming out of that jump, and visible thing on the wall destroys me. Alrighty, guys. Now heading into tourist trap here. This guy's gonna... this guy's gonna be using an RSR. Not very surprised. More or less disappointed. Man, an absolutely unbeatable car in this class, pretty much. I mean, there's not really much you can do when it comes to going against an RSR, especially on a track like Tourist Trap, but we're going to go ahead and see what can be accomplished here, see if we can do as good as humanly possible and maybe get close to keeping up with this thing. I know we get around 150s or so in our other vehicle, so we're going to try and aim for that. Off the rip, we went right into fourth. It's a great start for us. That's what we like to see, that elite clutch putting in that work, allowing us to get all the way into fourth gear immediately off the rip. Going to focus on Rev Tech here, getting as much top speed as possible. He's going to make a mistake, and we're going to slam right into the back of him because that's going to give him the advantage, of course. Why not? All right, that was a little frustrating right there. All we needed was for him to make one mistake, but of course the RNG, you know, I don't know. I'm just... I find it so hard to play this game sometimes, man. I don't know what it is, but it seems kind of unbalanced at times, but it's more or less just, I don't know, the repetitiveness of it. It gets a little old, but we're actually keeping up here with the infamous RSR in our E92 M3, which is very impressive, especially around a track like this where not really many mistakes can be made. We're rather close to our opponent. I'm going to save all these burst nos through this corner. We're actually gaining on them quite well. And with that Rev Tech, we are getting all the way out to 131. You guys just got to focus on that and make sure you're getting the full potential out of this vehicle if you decide to build this exact same car. But this is more or less just an example of how to build cars in this game, period. You can do the same thing for a car diving down to A class from A plus, or going up a class even. Rarely do I leave the cars that I purchase in the same class that they were purchased in. Usually, they move at least down or up one class, so we're pretty much going to stay right where we're at from that one mistake at the beginning, from hitting him after him making the mistake, so maybe we'll be able to gain on this last corner. I don't think so. Not really much he can do to make a mistake around here, but we did a pretty decent job. We got around a 150. That was our goal. Our goal time is like a 150, 150 flat, 152. That's not very bad. Hope you guys enjoyed this tuning tutorial, essentially. How to tune a vehicle to be at least mildly successful in the class. The RSR is meta, and we stayed rather close, so that is not bad, guys. I just wanted to basically walk you guys through, essentially, a test and tune process for me. Now, what I would go do at this moment is probably go back to the drawing board, check to make sure this is the best motor for the car. Probably attempt to use the stock motor. If you have an abundance of money, always try to start with the stock motor. See what you can do with it, see what you can get out of it, and use that as a baseline. If there's a basic motor in the car, it's most likely going to get more power in the class you're trying to use it for. Stock motors are usually good for going up a class or two, though, so it always depends on the car, the motors that come in it. It's really can be anything, you guys. It's super hard to give a straight tutorial on this will work every time, because there's a reason that only so many people make builds, because it takes a lot of time and requirements with testing and tuning and things like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and join this Whiplash and try and actually enjoy this game for a little bit. I appreciate you guys for tuning into this video, something a little different. I'll see you guys in the next one, and I'm out. Peace.